hit myself in the shin. That happened.
Well, that happened. It's the great shin
I hit the
incident.
button. I kicked my shin.
And Random will tell me when the video pops up. Oh, has it popped up?
Will I?
No, not yet. It will do. I don't think there'll be anyone watching, but there'll be people listening. And if I, by the power of studio mode, switch the transition to that.
Studio mode activate.
Oh.
People will see us at some point.
Oh. Yeah, it's not on the live tab. It's just on the home.
Just
tab.
on the home thing. Yeah, I don't.
Mute that.
It does some weird stuff, doesn't it? But there it is anyway. Let me click on it and then mute it quickly.
Oh,
And then I'll get the pop-out chat going in a minute. We'll say hello to everyone listening and get started because we are doing live news. And then when we disappear from that, we got to do a top 10. There's a couple of days left in the month and we ain't done nothing yet. So let's get
good job it's a leap year.
I know, yeah. It's given me an extra day in Feb. So some podcast catch up. First of all, let me just check the recording level on that because Audition is working again this month after not working last month. But okay, levels look okay on the recording. So we got an email last month with some bad news about one of our long-time listeners, guy we've met several times at Expo, being a news contributor, brought things along to Expo to show us in the booth, and sadly, he is no longer with us. That listener is Andrew Costin. You will know the name. You will have heard it on the show. And a friend of his, Chris Forrester, wrote us an email explaining what had happened to Andrew, who passed away in December during the Christmas holidays at the age of 52. So, sad news, but Chris also attached an image. There will be a link in the show notes to a floral tribute that his Amiga group made for his funeral. I think he said Andrew had only missed like 2 Amiga meets in all the time they've been running it. Very dedicated to the scene. And a listener to the podcast, contributor to the podcast, as I said. So he will be sadly missed at expos and in live news and generally all around the place. So our best wishes go out to his family.
I just want to say, to so many of our listeners and all that, it's tough. When you're doing a podcast, you got, it's you and your guys that are doing it. And then there are so many listeners, people that send in news items. And some of them, do for a one-off, right? Other people go, a decade of every month submitting something. And, obviously people have different levels of interest and time and all that. But, there's so many of you that we do know by name, that when we get a chance to meet you at the expos, like I was talking about what a great time we have with Saberman, and we've got to get into their listener top 10 next. Mm-hmm. But just the chance to meet you guys, the guys that actually care to listen to what we're doing, and it's something that means a lot to us. So, the passing of a member of the Retro Gaming Roundup family is sad, and he will be missed.
He will indeed. And that got me all sentimental. You mentioned Saberman there. We'll talk about that a little bit in a sec. But just thinking about some of the listeners that we've had over the years. Some are still with us. Some have joined us, partway through. Some have been with us from day one. Some have maybe fallen off. And some maybe still listen but just don't have the time or the wherewithal to contribute anymore. People like Vince Dickinson. I always come back to him. We used to, have a lot of news from Vince. I don't know if he's still around. He may well be. He may no longer listen. He may listen and not contribute. I don't know, but just got me all sentimental, with the loss of Andrew and just thinking about listeners that have come and gone. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was on the Steam Deck, just looking through Steam, and I'd asked Random a couple of weeks ago about the game Hogwarts Legacy, right? You know, was it any good? Everyone's talking about it, playing it, and blah blah blah. I don't think I was going to go out and buy it, but I just looking for opinions, and then I'm browsing through the Steam store and library, and in there you can see people on your friends list who've got particular games, and I noticed Brewmisator had Hogwarts Legacy, so I dropped him a message on Steam. Within a few seconds, he'd replied, and we started chatting. And Brewmisator, for those who don't know or can't really remember, his name is Petteri Rinne. Rinne. And he's from Norway. He came over, stayed with me for Play Manchester one year. And we just hung out, had a great time. Great listener, reasonably young guy. And then he just dropped into the conversation that in 2022, he had an illness and is now confined to a wheelchair. And I just thought, shit, man, you know, you just never know what is around the corner. And he was saying, like, you know, it's been a couple of years that, you know, he's kind of got used to it. And I was saying, well, is it permanent? Is it treatable? He said, technically it's treatable, but it's not looking good. So just had a bit of a catch up with him and a chat, and he's not able to concentrate for long periods on various things. He's not read, you know, many books for a while, and generally spends his time playing games, watching movies, and just thoughts go out to him as well. Real stand-up dude. Well, actually, that came out wrong, didn't it?
Where did I go, James? Jesus H. Christ. You had one job.
Oh, dear.
I hope he's sitting there laughing his ass off at you.
So do I. So do I. Oh, he's typing a very angry letter. Yeah. So not so much a stand-up dude anymore, but yeah,
Mr.
thoughts
James,
go
I
out
will
to
stand
him.
for that.
And so to commemorate Show 200 last month, Saberman Jeff got 4 listeners, 3 himself, and 3 other listeners together, AD Nermix and RF Warrior, and did a top 10 RGR moments, which we are about to do our own version of after the live news. And there were just some great bits in it, you know, listening to some of the things that sort of resonated with them, some of the stuff I'd forgotten, some of the stuff I'll, you know, never forget, and just it's interesting to see what resonates with different people. And I guess it's nice to just sit and listen to people talk about how entertaining you've been over the years.
I tell you what, that whole thing was an absolute masterpiece. Mike had messaged me and said, hey, you know, make sure that you listen to this before the show. And, you know, and I obviously I was going to, but it took me like a week longer than I wanted to. So finally I sat down, you know, all right, let's have a listen, right? And it was a masterpiece, okay? So let's talk about like some of the cast of characters involved, right? So Nermix was just, you know, he's an experienced podcaster, you know, runs his own show, just you know, music. I was gonna say he's a music maker. There's a word for that. He's a musician. So, it reminds me of this girl I used to work with, where she's like, you know, like when something's like super mysterious, like a mystery. I'm like, you mean a mystery? But, you know. So anyway, you know, he knows what the hell he's doing. So he was kind of like doing a great job of, without like, you know, really steering things too heavily, just kind of keeping a structure to the show, right? And then Adam, who am I thinking of? Saberman, right? Now, I know he's done, you know, media creation, content creation, but he did such a great job of sort of like punching the new bits in there when they needed to be, right? And that was brilliant, right? But I think sort of the master influence in this was, of course, Shady 80. He was like if you ever seen those great like cartoons where they have the vampire who's like, they're talking, like, you know, the I can't remember which cartoon it was that did this, but they're like, you know, the person is talking to the vampire, kind of looking around, and you see like the vampire's like grin in his teeth, and it kind of pans back, and he's upside down behind the person, right? The next thing you know, he's like sideways at a 90-degree angle, and then he's just gone and just kind of grinning over in the corner. But like that was 80. 80 was like the cat from Alice in Wonderland, right? Like he would just, you were like, hey, where'd 80 go? Is he, I haven't heard anything from 80 in a second. And he would just sort of fade into the audio with this perfectly timed little takedowner. He took the piss out of us more than a few times now. He goes, oh, let me call them out for some more of their bullshit. But it was fucking genius, man. Like the whole lot of them. There's just so many great moments as I was listening to this. And it was just this comedy gold mine of like little bits here and there, and then sort of being tied together, with the structure and organization of it. So, and then the fact that they were, the one that really got me is when they were talking, I can't remember who it was that brought it up, but they were talking about tangents. Then they end up on one. It goes on for like
Nermix and his egg analogy.
Oh yeah. In fact, I was making notes. I was listening to like Great Expectations, but no, just the whole lot of them, man. What like the fact that they all got together, and each individual person just had a masterpiece kind of level contribution. I just had the best damn time ever listening to that. That was so well done, so much fun. But absolutely, thank you to every one of those guys that took the time to go through and make that, because it was a laugh riot, as the kids say.
Yeah, it was classic. And in the show notes page, so I listened to it a second time a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, I think it was. And I went back to that show notes page and added links to, I think, just about everything. And it reminded me, I'd forgotten all about, I used to do a segment called The British Hour. And very, vague relevance to gaming at times, but it was just about different parts of England and stuff like that. And I'm listening to those, and I've made a page for them. I put them all together if you want to go back and listen to them. Some of them, particularly the early ones, I just thought, oh man, I've forgotten about that. But it just had me laughing at my own jokes. But that's okay, because they were jokes I'd forgotten. Just had a fun time going back listening to that. So reminded me of some things that literally had forgotten. So what else in the last month since we last spoke then? A couple of TV shows I caught up on. Andor, which is the one of the Star Wars origin stories. It was all right. Prefer The Mandalorian. The Grand Tour, the latest one of those came out. I watched that a couple of times now, actually. I watched a movie that I'd seen the trailer a few months ago, and it was supposed to come out, I think, in 2023. And it must have been back in the editing room more than once, because the trailer made the film look pretty good. Watched the film, it was just awful. And yeah,
they're good at that now. They're good at putting all the money and effort to either every good moment in the trailer is in the movie, but those are all the good moments, and they trick the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Or it's like they literally just made a trailer and then later attached a movie to it. It's like bait and switch advertising kind of. It was just god awful.
Yeah, it seems to be, as long as they've got you through the door, that's all they care about. Haha, fooled you. I don't know if I said what it was called. It was called American Fiction. Don't watch it, give it a miss. We went a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, to Leeds Video Game Market. So myself, Random, and Little Ben met up in Leeds and went to the video game market. Just a huge room full of vendors. I bought a couple of things. Random picked up a couple of odds and ends. I picked up N64 GoldenEye because I know I've had it, and I thought I still had it, but could not find it anywhere, so I just picked up that. And they were everywhere from like £12. Most of them were £10, and then on the last sort of stretch of stalls that we had left to do, I found a copy of it for £6. So I dropped £6 on that, and I bought, the arcade board games, the MB ones. I picked up one I didn't have.
Love them.
I picked up Zaxxon, and it's up there.
Oh,
on the
dude,
shelf.
that's such a great one, isn't it?
It looks it. I've read the instructions. Haven't actually sat down and played it yet. I've got 5
You have to
of
play
them
it at
now.
a funny angle.
Yes, you have to just sit on the corner of the table. So I've already got Defender, Frogger, Pac-Man, and Turbo, and I added Zaxxon to the list. So that
You gotta get Pac-Man though, and honestly, it's overhyped. It's expensive, but you do need to get Legend of Zelda because that was kind of like, oh look, they're making new board game video games, and they stopped. It was kind of it's a good one to add to the collection. Just saying.
yeah,
Good solid pick.
yeah.
But definitely get a Pac-Man. So I've got that same that stack of them I bought where I kind of tried to acquire most of them. I never play them. I got nobody to play with. Play board games, but it is just a cool thing to own because it's such a neat like bit of history. Just all the ephemera that I always dismissed because it wasn't the video game. I didn't want the extra stuff. I just wanted the video game. But I don't think there'll be ever be a moment where I'm craving the collectability of Funko bobbleheads, of the Death Stranding series. I don't see that happening.
No. So that is roundabout my month. Just before we move on, sort of related to books, someone reached out to me a couple of times in the last couple of months, having read Smoke and Mirrors, and to inform me that our friend Mr. Lee is now moving around various communities and allegedly, air quotes, scamming different communities now. So there was some incidents in a Naboo community, which is some sort of computer of some description. I'd never heard of it.
It is a Canadian. It's actually it's a really neat piece of hardware. It's a Canadian computer that was designed to be connected to a network dial-up in the 80s. So it wasn't intended to be. They had optional modules to add like a disk drive or a serial port, but those were not the intentions. The intention was it was connected to a central server, and all the software. Pardon me. All the software. All that damn software would be remote, and that's kind of what it was. It was the internet before the internet. Clever idea, but yes, you can upgrade them to have storage locally, and you can upgrade them to run other software. So, but it is a neat looking piece of hardware, that's for sure.
Yeah. So he's been pulling off some deals, shall we say, in that community, and then more recently has been moving on to Apple and Apple Mac communities as well. So he's still out there doing his thing. So buyer beware, I would say. And that is pretty much about my month, I think.
Well, I still haven't found much in the way of gaming. I kind of went through all the stacks of games again. I looked at some games that like some of the AAA titles, how much time I put on them. It was substantial. I can honestly say there was not like, any games I played that I just blew through. But that said, I did what I always do. I bring up the entire list of PS4 games, PS5 games, troll through it looking for any damn thing I haven't played. So I did get, and it was just delivered the other day, a copy of Middle-earth Shadow of War Definitive Edition. I hear good things, I hear bad things. We'll see. I have yet to really play it. I just installed it. I'll see how it looks. I literally got up to the intro and then, had to do other things. So it's sitting there. I'll try it out. Watched a couple movies. Mike, one of the movies that you had asked me to finally get around to checking out was the Ferrari movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's okay. It wasn't amazing. you could tell it looked like it was filmed directly on video at a relatively modest budget, which is kind of weird considering it's a movie about Ferrari. But it wasn't bad. You know, another movie I liked that honestly it was funny because it had about the same budget production value. It was clearly not like a high budget movie, but it was the Race for Glory, Audi versus Lancia. Have you seen that one?
Is it the one where they go into the shenanigans that they used to get up to, waiting for the stage to clear of dust and things like that?
Oh, so many shenanigans. Okay, so first of all, the Noodle Munchers were pulling some crazy shit. Like the Germans are like, "Viva Valley, yes, Viva Valley Race, and Viva follow the rules. They are rules." And you know, the Lancia shows up and they're like, "All right, here's what we do. We are going to have, because there was ice and snow up on the mountain on the rally stage." And the guy that, you know, works at Lancia calls up like his buddy, his cousin in the road department, and say, "Hey, can you go up there and put salt and get rid of all that ice on the mountain? But do it after the test run." So they, you know, they do a test run, and the Germans, they come down, and they're like, "Yeah, there's a lot of ice up there. Let's get studded tires on, right?" And they're like, "Okay." So they clear the roads of snow and ice. Lancia gets up there. They put their service truck around like the first corner, okay? So the car takes off on studs, right? And the other team sees it and says, "Oh, we'll switch to studs," right? So they switch to studs. So the team takes off, pulls over, jacks up the car, and starts pulling off the tires, right? And they put on regular tires because the roads are clear now. Mm-hmm. And you know the other driver goes by and he's like, "Son of a bitch, they tricked us." And so, you know, this car pulls over, does a tire change, and then the other one's on ice studs and they're on grippy, you know, road tires. Dude, they just caught him in a second and flew past him, right? So then they said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna disqualify you. You broke the rules." He goes, "What rule?" It doesn't say you can't call your cousin to have him clear the road. You know, it was just fucking awesome, man. They brought in, like, they had to have 200 cars production minimum for, you know, the race version of the car to be eligible. Mm-hmm. So they made 103 cars or something. So they parked them. Then he takes the French over to the other storage lot. So they get in the car. He's taking the longest way through town. He goes into the restaurant. He orders food for him. And he goes, "We'll just eat while the traffic clears out. We're not going anywhere fast at rush hour." And they're like, yes, but we must be going. We want to get home, and it's late. And he goes, "Oh, don't worry. We'll be there shortly." So they're sitting there, typical Italian disorganization. So they're sitting there in a restaurant, and all of a sudden you see, like, you know, the 18-wheelers go by carrying all the cars. And, you know, he tells the chef, "Take your fucking time," right? So he's buying them wine, all this, you know. And meanwhile, the trucks are going by in the background. They haul the cars over to the other place. They go over there, they count them. They're like, "Oh, 206, you're good to go." Yeah. But dude, just some of the shenanigans that were pulled. Now, none of the actors are actors. You know, it's not. You know, one of the things that was both disappointing and fun at the same time is you could tell they went out with like equipment like Random Day would have. You know, good prosumer, good video equipment, but not like, you know, what a multi-million-dollar studio would have, you know, like Hollywood per se, right? So you can tell the kind of gear it was filmed on. Yes, it's high res. Yes, it's amazing, but you can tell the shots are done with achievable means. There's not a lot of, you know, $1 million sorcery involved in this hardware. And the bit that was kind of disappointing and kind of good at the same time, and Random, you should absolutely watch this movie and give us your feedback, given your experience in, you know, film stuff. But you know what when they filmed the cars, they didn't punch it up, right? They didn't like smoothly double the speed. They didn't add gravel and smoke and fury and make it seem 10 times greater than it was. They actually made it look like how fast the cars really go. So, when a car's, flying through a village at like, say, 80, when it would be 30 normally, and coming up to a 90-degree corner, it doesn't look like it looks in the video games, trailing smoke and fire and gravel storms, and, it blurs your vision as it thunders by and shakes the earth. No, it's just a car going by at 80, So the scenes of the rally cars running on the courses aren't like over the top. They're not jaw dropping. But yet, as somebody who has been to rally races, who has, done what's called rallycross, which is like, amateur hour rally racing, just basically against time, in, big horsepower Subarus and all. It's also kind of cool to see the cars performing as they really perform. And a lot of these are vintage rally cars that are privately owned that were used in the movie. So these guys are out there running their rally car. They're not going to, this is a giant investment for them. They're not going to roll over a launching, rally car. So they weren't trying to kill themselves like they were in competition. So it's a neat mix of like seeing the cars more realistically portrayed, but then you're also like, yeah, but they punched it up like 10 times more than it really is. Like do they do with F1 movies where like they're sucking manhole covers off and piercing eardrums and shattering glasses in the cafe at the top of the Eiffel Tower from 4 miles away. That kind of shit, right? So all in all, I'd give it a watch. So honestly, guys, most of what I've been doing is arcade stuff. I have done a kind of a massive renovation. Mike, you know how my arcades were laid out, right?
Yep.
So I went through and I changed everything up. So, first we had to get, carpets need to be cleaned because it was time for that. So I had to haul every goddamn game in my house from one side to the other, have them come and clean the carpets. Move everything to the other side, have them come and clean the carpets. Move everything back where it belongs, right? But the way I have it done now is that T800 is like at the back of the arcade, and you can kind of walk through from like the pinball area. It's like you can walk a full circle now.
Right.
And then I have that sort of U shape in the back. And then I ended up putting in 3 rows of games at the front for the video game area. And so kind of like there's like 2 different aisles you can walk down. And I've got like that center aisle, like Dragon's Lair capsid at one end and Tron caps at the other end with a strip of games in the middle. And it actually, provides better flow. The games are more accessible. And now I have fewer games that my more maintenance prone ones that are like hard to get to. Now, most of them are relatively easy to get to for maintenance. So really it's just kind of a win-win reorganization. But moving that many games around, and of course, my decrepit ass, I'm like, well, I'm not going to not go to the gym. Mm-hmm. So, I get up that, each morning for about 3 weeks there. I'd go over to my trainer, sitting there, fucking bench pressing and squats and deadlifts. Then I'd go home and like, what's great? Let's move multi-100-pound arcade machines. And there was one day, man, I got through working. And I was literally walking in like 2-inch steps. I wish you were standing here. I could show you how ridiculous it was. I was just doing this like old man shuffle across the floor, and everything hurt. Nothing could bend more than a few degrees. Like it was like somebody had come in and put a constraint on my joints that they couldn't travel more than 8 degrees. So it was like just going across the floor. But all done. And I've got the new kitten, the Maine Coon, is arriving in a week or so. So I had to finish kitten proofing the basement, which is different than cat proofing. So I completed all that. But yeah, it's a great reorganization. It was, whenever you get, I talked about this before, guys, whenever you get kind of settled in how your collection is and you think it works, or maybe you're happy or not happy, fucking tear everything out, put it in a different way and see what happens. Chances are you might be happy. So anyway, that's been my very busy month. And then I'm about to hop on a motorcycle and do ridiculous speeds down to Florida for a week. So
yeah, you're not on camera. You're about to leave home at some point. So you're upstairs on a laptop.
Yeah, well, I walked through the room, but yeah. So basically, yeah, I'm doing the show, and I'm waiting on the dryer to finish the laundry, and the Amazon guy to show up with my other rain pants and everything else in the world. So, yay me,
Yay.
Rando.
All right. So since I was last present, ended up moving house, which was not at all planned for particularly. So that was a pain in the ass, but gave me an opportunity to set up a tidier and more organised office with actual room for keeping my sofa clear, which the dogs now just come in and decided to use for once. And yeah, well, my games CRTs now accessible from the sofa, so that's all good. So yeah, it's been all right. So yeah, I've not done a huge amount of interesting stuff. Been a lot of sort of woodwork and bits and pieces, sorting all various areas of the house out. But yeah, I went to the Leeds Doodad with Mike and Ben. Nice to catch up with them. Good to find things to do other than standing in ridiculous queues, because there was a lot of nerds there.
There were.
Yeah, but yeah, picked up a couple of cheap PS2, no PS3, PS4, and Xbox 360 stuff. Seems like that's still in the sort of the sweet spot in terms of price. So I was picking up some odds and ends like launch day games and things like that. A couple of hardware pickups for my birthday. My mates bought me the 8-bit Do. It's gonna get chroma keyed out.
Yeah, there we go.
8-bit Do NES keyboard. It's quite a nice keyboard. I already had plenty of keyboards, but hey, always fun to have another one. And then also in a sort of a bit of a retro thing, I started deciding I was getting annoyed with. Well, I never really got on terribly well with ear canal headphones, particularly, and then also over the hair headphones. Used to be fine with, but since I've been ill, I guess it starts to annoy my ears after a little while, and I quite like just old traditional earbuds, which turns out I found were incredibly hard to find sort of decent wired traditional style earbuds that don't sound like complete ass. And I don't mind picking up a few pairs that sound like ass, because I'll take them camping and things like that, and any sort of activities where it doesn't matter if they get wrecked. And I tried a couple from China, and they were quite good, but the better sounding ones didn't fit me very well. And then I stumbled across a guy in Sweden that makes his own. I've got one pair here, and I've got another pair downstairs somewhere, but DIY completely. They're using Sennheiser MX500 shells, which are my all-time favourite fit for headphones, but they stopped selling them years ago, and they used to be really good sounding headphones. But yeah, you get to choose the sound profile of, depending on, like, there's sort of 3 different types of models, but the ones with the Sennheisers, I think there's 6, maybe 7 varieties available. So you pick the sound profile that you like, and the cable color, and the color of the shells, and yeah, sends you a very nice sounding pair of wired old school sort of earbud headphones. So yeah, bought a couple of pairs of them. Been very happy with them.
You know, I bought this German motorcycle helmet. It's a Schuberth C4 Carbon, right? It's a freaking $1,800 helmet, right? And the main reason I bought it is because it's so weatherproof. It has this double pane visor. It doesn't fog up, and we ride a lot in bad weather. So, like, this thing is just epic. It's also very light. When you do like tomorrow, I'm gonna do about a 12 to 13 hour day on a motorcycle, stay at a hotel, do about a 12-hour day, and when you get through like the first 8 hours and your helmet starts to feel like a cinder block, and you got 4 more hours to go, and you're doing it again the next day, it gets a little old. So this carbon helmet it feels like you're wearing a ball cap when everybody else is wearing a heavy helmet. But it has built-in audio. So it has the microphone, the Bluetooth unit, the speakers. And, honestly, man, for $1,800, I expected this thing to sound like a fucking set of those headphones like you've built. And they didn't. They sounded god-awful. And they had this little 20-millimeter speaker in there that was just shit. So I ended up getting a set of the speaker elements that are like 38 millimeters. And, I 3D printed a ring for it and then, used a hot knife to carve out the foam. And what a difference. Now you put those things on, they're punchy, they're loud. They've got, it sounds like there's a sub on the bike. Just unbelievably good. So, it's amazing how disappointing off-the-shelf audio has gotten in many cases. Like we literally can't build a decent, or won't build a good, decent set of headphones anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you can do. But yeah, it just seems like, I was looking to get some, maybe some new over-ear headphones, and I want them wired, and there's just not a lot that's any good. You get to like certain parts, there's like audiophile stuff where, they want you to pay vast amounts of money, or for various reasons, I'd rather have closed back headphones. You can get quite good open back headphones, but they tend to be expensive. But yeah, it's just, everyone's just gone like, oh, well, we have to have noise cancelling, Bluetooth and everything, and that's where we're making sales, so we'll just shift all of our product lines over to that. And yeah, it's just hard to find the right kind of product a lot of the time now. It's a bit annoying, but I guess that's the way these things are.
Okay, so in chat there, while we were chatting, I was drinking from a James and Watch mug, and Random did a Guinness Gaming Records, was it last month or the month before, for the largest collection in the world of James and Watch mugs. So are you all right with giving a few away, Random?
Yep. Like I said in the chat, I've been meaning to add them to the prize page.
So Retro Hamer said, oh no, you said you'd be up to swapping some for some bad games, and Retro Hamer said, I've got Playboy on the PS2. So the phrase that pays will be, I've got Playboy on the PS2. And you type that phrase into the chat window when you hear the prize alarm, which is this. Not this time. This is a test. So the smart ones among you will...
Do they have to type PlayStation 2?
No,
or
they type
PS2 in all caps and everything.
Yeah, they type it exactly as Retro Hamer did in the chat there. So the smart ones among them will copy and paste it. I've, with an apostrophe, got Playboy with a capital P on the PS2, capital P, capital S2.
Because I'm a little bit broken, I still now, whenever I type PlayStation, write PlayStation out somewhere, I have to actually do the proper capitalization of capital P and capital S. And then part of me also wants to put like TM and all sorts of shit that I used to have to like make sure I wrote whenever I was working on PlayStation shit.
So when I was going through like the final edits of Smoke and Mirrors, it was Carlson, I think, he was talking about when he'd built or done a design for a handheld PS1, and he was saying, make sure you spell PlayStation properly with a capital P and a capital S. So I had to go through and check every time I'd use the word. Well, I used a word processor that did it for me, but you get the point. Alrighty, let's do some news then. We have got quite a few. And the first one comes from Retro Gaming Roundup, which I assume is me, but I don't know. Maybe not. Oh yeah, that was oh my word, yeah, we could just mention that briefly. So we had the big debate about the pending, possible, never gonna happen, it'll happen next week, Video Game Crash 2.0. So people love that debate that we had. There's been some talk about it in Discord, and Simon in this month's Dinosaur Pie, unwittingly I think, will throw the cat among the pigeons yet again. So check out Dinosaur Pie if you haven't already. And so this first news item came from Sparkle while we were still discussing that, and it was the John Carpenter game that he said Scott is going to love. John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, which is due out sometime somewhere on the PC, PS5, and the Xbox.
So funny enough, we were talking about, as we said, the impending or post 2.0 crash, and I read an interesting article, and I don't have it in front of me, but I'll bring the receipts. I'll bring it next time we sit down and record. And I think it's honestly a good read because it offers a third perspective. Okay, my perspective is, and I'll admit he changed my perspective a little bit as to I don't think I'm wrong, but I think I maybe attributed different motivations. Now it's probably a combination of the two, but anyway, to get to the point, what this fellow proposed, he wasn't even talking about games at all. He was talking about Hollywood and movie making. And what he said was, I'd made the observation that it seems like they do a decent season, maybe two, and then go to shit, cut the budget, and you sit there and watch it until you don't. But they spent less per season and, the whole 9 yards. So the way this guy characterized it is he was actually talking about, he mentioned the Hollywood structure, and he said, well, let's talk about music. And this is where he really sold the topic. So he went off into the whole music world, and he said, okay, so back in the day, a band, they had a manager, and they would get a contract with a studio, and it would cost this much to make an album, this much to the cover. They put it out there. They sold it, $10 to $20 stable price for, 50 years. And, the artists were rich and everybody did well and they went on tour, and that was music, right? Well, he talked about the rise of the studio producer, and he was not kind about it. He described them as a rent-seeking middleman, which is a description we use to describe the Kennedy business model. But these producers of the studio albums are the rent-seeking middleman. They want huge commissions, giant amounts of money. They're kind of your gateway into recording. And, it's considered without the producer, the album can't succeed. So and then, of course, with the advent of streaming and the ability of people to select one song instead of having to buy the whole tape, the whole 8-track, the whole record, the whole CD at the offered price point. The sort of pick and choose, like, we're not going to buy the B-side because we don't like it. But just the way he laid the whole case out, and I thought about video games. And I thought about, okay, where does the money go? And, I'm sure Dave can, and he has, I know on other occasions, Random Dave has made comments on this. So you look at, say, a video game studio of really any point on the spectrum, and there's one or two very wealthy people and some very nice cars there. And then there's all the worker bees. And I mean, that's common in a lot of industries, but, it's not hard to figure out who the rent-seeking middlemen are that, up the cost, but slow down the product and degrade the product. So anyway, I just thought it was a really interesting perspective that it wasn't so much just the industry looking to make, X amount more money without actually producing games and all. It was more of like, well, if the rent-seeking middleman can't make their money, then why bother? But it's the rent-seeking middleman that's changed the process from production. It's not so much the sheer size of the team and all. It's those people that are causing a problem. So anyway, interesting read. I thought it was very good.
Yeah, so I sent a couple in about the same topic. You can read them at your leisure. You'll probably have heard of at least one of them. The first one I called Video Game Crash 2.0 Yay, and the second one I called Video Game Crash 2.0 Nay. So the first one was Microsoft laying off 1,900 Activision Blizzard staff. completely going against what they said when they took them over or merged with them or whatever the hell they ended up doing in the end. And then the second story was True Gamers secures $45 million of investment. But it's not to make games. It's to establish more than 150 esports facilities across Saudi Arabia. So there is plenty of money in gaming. It's just not necessarily being spent in the right places, perhaps.
Well, maybe. But then, well, I mean, part of the problem is because Sony, since all this has happened, like Sony had their financial investor calls, and they're absolutely, so like I don't know, it's probably later in the news, but Microsoft, going multi-platform. There was a lot of talk of, it's like Sega with the Dreamcast, etc., etc. Does this mean the death of their hardware business? But, they've been soundly thrashed, and they're putting an investment into making all these games, and they need to make the money back somehow. So might as well put them out, where there's a bigger audience. But then, Sony follows up with an investor call a couple of weeks later, and they're like, "Well, yeah, we're selling gangbusters, but the problem is we're not actually making any money because we're spending 8 years making a game that's costing like $400 million sort of to make, a couple $100 million to market, and then yes, we sell loads and we've put the prices up, but that doesn't actually really make the money back." So back when you look at sort of classic Sony, I'd say, which was PS2 era, where they'd be willing to make a lot more interesting bets and do lots of different things. And yes, there were smaller projects, and a lot of them would fail. But then, you're putting less on the line. You're probably still making as much, if not more, profit at the end of the day. But then they've sort of built themselves on basically making, the biggest, most epic sad dad games on the games market, and that's what people expect of them now. And so yeah, they're in a kind of a fucked up position. They, like a lot of people, were making a big push into live service games, and they confidently announced, we've got 7 in development, and we've bought the Bungie to help us with them, to get their help from, their success from Destiny. And they've cancelled. They cancelled the Last of Us live service game quite a while, a few months, maybe a couple of months ago. Today they closed London studio and then canned the Twisted Metal game, which was going to be a live service game, which was the second developer that they'd had making it, because another developer in the UK had made, I can't remember, I don't think they'd made a huge amount of it, but they sort of ripped it away from them and went, no, we're giving it to these other people. They're going to do a much better job, and then they've scrapped that now. So it looks like they're steadily, I mean, for them, Helldivers is kind of strongly sort of, I think they're published on the PS5 side of things. That's been a massive overnight hit. Whether that was part of their live service portfolio of 6 or 7, I don't know. But the problem is everyone wants to get gamers on the hook for these live service games, and there's only actually so much time to go around for people to actually play them. And it's the old thing like World of Warcraft, where that was successful and everyone went, right, we need to make a big subscription MMO, we need to cash in on this, and then no one can ever do it because you just get too many, and then you split it's the same audience, you're not bringing new people in so much. And yeah, so there needs to be a big change in the gaming landscape, because Rocksteady got slammed. They made some very, very well received Batman games, and then they made the Suicide Squad game and released that recently, and it's just a sort of a not exactly terribly inspiring live serviceification of superhero game. And yeah, it's not really what anyone wanted, and it's not I don't think it's done very well because of it. So
yeah. Have you guys seen the Kojima movie?
No.
Oh, the documentary thing.
Yes.
Yeah, not yet. I've been meaning to watch it.
Oh, it's so good, guys. So good. Okay. One, it's a good movie. Okay. It shows him, and his thought process, and they directly head on address these issues in many of these issues. So first they talk about, okay, the gaming car companies aren't taking on interesting projects. They're playing it safe. They're doing this. They're doing that. Everything that you just rattled off, random. And they say, but like, oh, so Kojima goes to the banks and goes to the industry and says, look, I'm not going to tell you what I'm making. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. But I want to start a studio, and I want to make games people actually want to go out and buy and not do any of these bullshit hustle models. And they said, okay, here's your money. So he did. And they talk about the creation of Death Stranding, right? And, he navigated that whole space so well. Awesome documentary. I can't say enough good things about it. Guys, you got to watch the Kojima movie. I think it's called like Blending Worlds, Merging Worlds, Bridging Worlds.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's euphemism for that. Yeah. Guys, it's just what a great freaking movie, okay? So they take on, as I said, these topics, and I think their take is pretty damn valid and relevant, and it's well worth a watch. But I think there's, unfortunately, for every Kojima who's out there launching a Death Stranding, which I played through, I would say honestly 3 full playthroughs of a whole lot of hours each, and random. I know you did too, man. You and I, we were all over this game. And the problem is, if there were a whole lot of Kojimas out there making a whole lot of games like this, I wouldn't be making the case I'm making. The problem is, there's a lot of people consolidating and merging staffs under managers and stacking down lines of reports and incomes and making bobbleheads and not making fucking games. So I wish there were more Kojimas. Unfortunately, there seem to be a whole lot of rent-seeking middlemen.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens with Fable, because for okay, you got a lot of ribbing for talking porky pies a lot of the time with Peter Molyneux, but you can, at least he had, throughout his entire career, he's had like this vision, and like Kojima, he has an idea, and he they might be a bit off the wall and a bit weird, but he goes through with them and he drives his team in that direction, and tries to make something a bit different and interesting. Whereas everything now, you can see that there's a risk with the new Fable that it's going to be very sort of designed by committee, and it's not going to be anything particularly unique about it and interesting. There's just going to be like a middling sort of fun, light-hearted action RPG, but nothing particularly to write home about. And sticking with Kojima, it's interesting that his Sony finally sort of went, all right, we'll use the movie side of the business. We'll give you some more money for the game side of the business. We'll let you finally make your big crossover movie / game that you want to make. Your final magnum opus, which is going to be, from the sounds of things, a Metal Gear in all but name, because obviously you can't call it that. But it does make you wonder if that'll be it for him. Death Stranding 2 pretty much wrapped up, so he'll go off and make this one final. It's not tactical espionage action, but it's he's just called it something like espionage action with tactics or something. But it could be like his magnum opus, final swan song. This is it. I've scanned all the actors I want and put them into games. I finally got to make this film and a game alongside it. And it'd be interesting to see if he hangs up his coat after that or not. He must be getting on now.
Yeah. I don't
Doesn't
know
look that
he is,
old.
but, no, well, you
He looks
can't tell with
pretty
Japanese
old to me.
people, can you? They do age quite well. So Lord Neil Barmer sent me an email. Sent us one. a couple of days ago, I don't think I've sent you any news this month. Please accept my sincere apologies. I'll do more betterer in the future. And I said, liar. You sent us the ZX Ray Tracer, and on top of that, you asked what email for random uses for random questions. So stop being a little attention whore and leave us to not put out a podcast on time. And he came back and said, well, Ray Tracer was in January. But it came in after our last live news. So here it is, this month, Lord Neil Barmer's sole contribution. Luckily, Gareth Hamer and David Gyrick have smashed it in his absence. But it is, as he says, a quite intelligent person deciding to do a ray tracer on a Spectrum of all things. Seems to work quite well considering the limitation, although apparently it took about 37 hours to run. And it's a long, long page with lots of words, lots of code, and he does show you a lot of his code, and screenshots and all of that. Goes way above my head. It's way too engrossed, not engrossed, but you know, too deep to go into right now. But it's something you should definitely check out at your leisure. So thank you, Lord Neil, for your sole contribution. I hope you are sitting with your feet up and listening to us while doing nothing.
Nothing at all. Got one here sent in by... Oh, it's Mr. James. How electromechanical pinball machines work. Now, not a bad video. The guy that did this, he took the time to kind of walk through the major mechanisms. Because once you understand the mechanisms, then you need to understand how the game does things. Like, how does it know how many balls you have, right? Well, it needs a ball counter. How does it work to know it has balls? How do you add balls to the counter? How do you deplete them? And how, when you get to no balls, do you know that, in fact, you have no balls left and the game is over? And how does that do other things like turn off flippers and things like that? And once you understand those, the mystery's unlocked. It's all gone. It's stupid easy to figure out. And I just think it's... it's one of those things where, like, if you own electromechanicals, the maintenance is never over. You never truly get them fixed. So, like I was mentioning all the arcade projects I've been doing. The other day, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago or so, I turn on my pro football electromechanical, and I'm used to hearing the ching 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 ching, and then ready to go. And there's what's called the scoring motor, which is a motor inside the pinball that turns and has all these turrets and connectors. And basically, it will turn itself off after a revolution, and it will do a bunch of actions based on the cams that touch various switches. Well, in my case, one little switch on the other side of the pinball machine, located up by a scoring reel, had just gotten itself a little out of sorts. But what that meant is the scoring motor was kept on because it thought an action was still ongoing. So you basically got chunk, 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 and the scoring motor wouldn't stop running, which is, by the way, probably the number one symptom of a non-working EM machine is scoring motor keeps running. So the first thing idiots do, idiots, the inexperienced, whatever, is they go in and they just want to stop the scoring motor because it's driving them nuts. They can't figure out what's going on. So they start disconnecting, bending switches back, doing all kinds of stuff. In the end, you look at the schematic, it shows you that there's 2, 6, 8, 12 switches. If any one of them is closed, it'll run the scoring motor. Go check them all. You'll be done in 5 minutes. But, yeah, good video. I really liked it.
So this came in, and I was sort of putting, the news items into a web page for when I upload the show. And I just, every few days, I just go in, grab the latest ones, put them in the file. And I saw this one. I thought, I'll give this a quick watch. 90 minutes later, I'd watched part 1 and part 2, and I'm like, fuck. It was some of the best stuff I've seen on YouTube for a long time. Just really explained it well. And like Scott says, once it kind of, triggers in your mind that, oh, that's how that does it, and then that means it knows, how many balls are on, in play, how many players are playing, what to do with each score, etc. It all makes sense, and it's just a couple of great videos. I think he says at the end of part 2 there's a part 3 coming. I don't think it's there yet, and part 2 was done a little while ago, so I mean, it's a long video, a lot of work to do it, so I'm waiting for part 3. But yeah, I just sat and watched them both back to back. Really good stuff.
Cool.
I'm glad he has the time because I fucking don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got one here from Gareth Hamer, and he's asking when shall he book tickets? If he wants to pay for us all to go, I'm happy for him to buy us some tickets. But it's to a London soft play centre that does adults only nights, where they have DJs, a bar, and a retro arcade. And no doubt a ball pit that's probably full of a lot of cum.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. All the soft play items are wipeable.
Yeah. It's going to be some interesting date nights that people will want to go and do there. But could go along, have a bit of fun, see what the arcade's like. Throw Ben around on some
We'll take Ben in, put him on the slide.
soft playground.
Come on, Ben.
They'll probably be like, "No, sorry guys, kids is tomorrow.
Yeah, it's adults only.
Leave your son
I'm
at home."
42.
Adults only night. You gotta love it. So, got one here from Gareth Hamer. Several, I'm sure he meant several, games getting released for the Atari 7800 by Atari. So it looks like they're taking some of the old 7800 cards, getting them manufactured. Now, it might be right there in the text, or they might be being cagey about it. I don't know. I haven't looked. But let's face it, if you're going to get games like that made, you're going to get the shell. You're going to, where are you going? You're going to Atari Age. Oh, who bought Atari Age? Okay. So I think that all kind of the figures add up, don't they?
Yeah. They are all previously released titles. There's nothing new. Even,
Yeah, they're just re-releases.
Yeah, they're not like, oh, it was only on the 2600, now we ported it to 78. They are all, originally available on the 7800. They are Fatal Run, Food Fight, and Ninja Golf, for those interested.
Now, I don't see myself buying any of those because I've got the originals, I don't feel like inspired to go buy these, but, for the things that Atari does that I don't like, and it's a substantial list, I just got to kind of step back and give them credit for this. What's one of the things we always, people always ask Keith back in the day, hey, why don't you re-release some Intellivision games and make them? He'd go, well, because they're horrendously expensive and you guys only buy 80 of them. And he ain't wrong, So all due love and respect to Keith on that topic. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So I'm kind of glad they're making these. Yes, okay, so they're cost as much as they did. It's, who cares? I'm kind of glad that it's happening. So for the shit that they do that I don't give high praise to, I stand by that. For these things here, I got to give a little praise to it. So good on them.
This one comes in from Gareth Hamer. I know there is a few Jane Austen fans here. I'm not sure how many, but there might be one or two. And he links to this story on timeextension.com. My word, Jane Austen is getting her own NES platformer. And she is indeed. Jane Austen has a playable character in an NES platformer. Yeah, why not? The author of Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, etc., etc., etc. In this game, you'll be taking on all manner of enemies lifted straight from Austen's books. Yeah, we all know all Jane Austen's enemies, no doubt, and can bring them all to mind. But yeah, a weird one, but I don't know. It could well be a good platformer.
It looks a lot like.
Please tell me it's things like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
It's
It looks a lot like a ROM hack of Mario 2.
it does
From the
look
screenshots.
Mario-ish. I don't think it's quite Mario 2, but
There's
mind
something
you, the
about
fourth
sprite with the
screenshot with the
outline.
castle does look quite like it. The other's not too much, but yeah, weird one.
Another weird one, maybe. This was David Gyrick. Sent one in. He says he had these books as a kid, and it is a story about how Nintendo Adventure books ended up getting made. The headline was Nintendo Adventure Books Mario's Fighting Fantasy Period. Reminded me that was something else I'd done this month. Was I'd been picking up Final Fighting Fantasy books every now and again if I see them in charity shops, and I finally sort of sat down and started playing through a couple of them. I'm not going to say much at the moment. I want to get a bit more of a feel for them. Certainly, the first one seems very straightforward. It seems to every third page is like you're walking down a corridor. Do you want to go left or forward and check this room? And these books are more sort of choose your own adventure, I'd say, with then some puzzles rather than the sort of the dice, a more sort of RPG style that it was the Lone Wolf series I used to have as a kid. Yeah, interesting little thing to look back on if you ever had those as a child.
Oh, who remembered? Who copied and pasted?
Something else talking of remembering and things I've played. So this month saw the release of the remakes of the Tomb Raider games. Well, the first three, and that was getting quite a lot of praise. And that made me think, rather than go back, and I've never really played 3 very much, and I've been meaning to for a while. But instead of doing any of that or checking out the new version, I thought I'd actually finally sit down and try and play Angel of Darkness. I think that might actually be a bad game.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of backlash at the time. I think because a lot of it, I always sort of got the feeling that it was people not liking the awkwardness to sort of trying to kind of get it into a fully 3D movement, but still some aspects of the old tile-based kind of setup. But actually, there's just a lot of bad mistakes in terms of game design, level design. I'm finding as I go through, which is interesting.
It was basically Tomb Raider 6, and I got a bit of the way through it, and I found myself still dying because of things that weren't my fault, either controls or environment, and I just thought, I'm not having fun here. I'm never doing this again. And I read about the remasters, and it said updated with modern controls, and I thought, well, you've completely fucked that up for me then, because I like the tank controls and the predictable movement of the originals.
Well, you can still use tank controls in the new ones.
But what is a modern control? I'm not so
analog,
sure I'm
using the 2 analog joysticks, so one will revolve you.
But why is that?
Because I can't play games like that.
Yeah, but why? I mean, no, me neither. I've said so many times I'm not a double thumb gamer, right? But why would someone feel the need? What should we do? Oh, let's add modern controls. But shouldn't it play like the original? No, that's one thing we'll change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can see where they're coming from though. So they've got the tank controls in, but a lot of people do struggle with that concept. These days who've missed, come in and PS2, PS3 with their first consoles.
Well, then let's take the joystick out of Pac-Man. Why don't we?
Well, they did kind of do
Pac-Man, the
weird
touchscreen games,
and modern controls.
Make the steering wheel out of Outrun. Oh, who wants to corner that way? Let's add in an analog top hat.
Let's put modern controls in.
But they've given they've at least given the choice. So you've got people who want to do it one way can do it their way, and the others can do it the other way. And then you've got them both there to sort of switch between, and you might be like, oh, actually, turns out that something a bit more fluid than the tank controls might have been better after all. Or it might be that newer gamers are like, oh, actually, yeah, this is my gateway into this tank control business. I can now probably see my way to playing, the original Resident Evils or whatever.
Yeah, as long as they've left both control methods in, that makes it better. Just let me type this message, and then I will go back to 2 Virtual Boy stories this month. The first one from Gareth Hamer. For those who don't get headaches from a Virtual Boy, and it is a flash cart, the Hyperboy, a 32 megabit flash cart for the Virtual Boy. And then we got another one, and I think Random sent it in, and I think he was just beaten to it by somebody else. Somebody else sent it in, and it's a Virtual Boy emulator for the 3DS that gives you the full 3D effects. And I've seen video of it running. I think it only came in today, so I haven't tried it yet, but I've seen video. Looks interesting, and I shall give it a try at some point.
Yeah, I've not hacked my 3DS yet. I've got a couple. I've got like the original launch one. I might as well do.
I'd do the new one with the extra analog and what have you.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah, at this point, the eShop's closed. The online service is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, might as well. That's a good point. But I did put the Oculus Quest Virtual Boy emulator on that, and when I got that, that's quite good, because obviously still got the original sort of feeling.
So another
that's a great title to Modern Controls.
One here from Gareth Hamer. Before we do that, speaking of Gareth Hamer, it looks like he's won himself a mug. Or if you don't want a mug, or you've already got one, but let's face it, everyone wants a set of...
drink a styrofoam cup.
Everyone wants a set of 6 for the kitchen. You can go to retrogamingroundup.com/prizes. He pasted, or typed, I don't know which, the phrase that pays when he heard the sound alarm, and that phrase that pays is, I've got Playboy on the PS2. And he says he'll send you a game random, so I'm guessing he wants a mug.
All right.
So if you let Random know your address, you can exchange details in your own time. And things will get sent to you within probably this calendar year.
Yeah, maybe. I've not been too bad, actually. Yeah, I've not been too bad at sending stuff out to people of late. Although the Postal Service made us think that they lost some quite valuable original Xbox games that I'd sent to someone. And yeah, sort of on Monday it had been about 3 weeks by this point, and he was like, which address did you put on it? And then luckily a few hours later he did actually send me a photo of the box. So it did eventually get there. But,
so speaking of the post office, there was a TV show about it. It may only be relevant to UK people, but it's an interesting story about our post office and the IT system put in by Fujitsu. And it's called Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. So briefly, if you don't know, Fujitsu put a new IT system in all the post offices, and it was getting the numbers wrong, and the post office were accusing postmasters of stealing money, and it was tens of thousands. With some people, it got into 6 figures. They lost houses, they lost the pensions, they lost everything. Some of them went to prison, and it turned out that maybe Fujitsu were logging in at night to fix errors, but creating bigger ones and not telling. Well, were they telling the post office, or were they not? Well, I don't think we still know to this day, but it's a big scandal. It's still going on. It's been going on for the best part of a decade, if not more, and it's still dragging on now because no one will own up to what they knew and when, and no one will say sorry. So, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. I think it's 3 or 4 part
so
drama.
all those guys is out of jail now, or are people still like languishing in jail?
No, everyone who went to jail is out. Some people have got compensation. There's a lot haven't, and some people, of course, died before they had their name cleared, and so their families are fighting on. So it is still going on through the legal system, but I think everyone who was put in prison is out. And another show I watched, I forgot I meant to say at the beginning, I think I've got 2 episodes left. Colin from Accounts. It's an Australian comedy, half-hour episodes. The first episode wasn't brilliant, and I watched that, I don't know, a few weeks ago and thought, nah, I probably won't carry on with that. And then 2 people completely separately said, oh, have you watched Colin from Accounts? It's brilliant. So if you get through the first episode, it gets much better. It's been really good. I can't wait to watch the last 2. So, very good Australian comedy. Okay. So Gareth Hamer is going to get himself a mug, and Random's going to get himself Playboy on the PS2. Maybe that'll find its way into the Lucky Dip at some point.
I'm gonna get myself an answer as to what the fuck these guys are thinking. Remember those nice things I said about Atari earlier?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Go on.
I don't get these guys. So there is like some sort of energy drink powder out there called G Fuel. And I'm going to guess the G means gaming. Yuck, 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 yuck. So I'm going to guess it's also just basically sugar and water. So you can buy this Atari box. It's a Atari 2600. And they went with the 4-switch, not even the 6-switch. Printed onto a cardboard box that's full of G Fuel and a tumbler. So now you can sit in and a keychain. Not like you ever leave the basement, but if you ever did, you could put keys on it and find your way back in. Mm-hmm. Why?
So,
why?
You say why, but I mean, what I hope of this story is that literally, it's a powdered drink you put in water. Literally, I think it's so you can actually drink the Kool-Aid. But I don't think they're that clever. So I think it's just dumb fuckery on their part. But yeah. Wow.
Well, actually, I got one more here already I queued up from Neil Ballmer. And I'll read it on his behalf and address it to Random. So it says, I forgot the email address for Dave's random questions, even if he still does them. I think Dave will honor this one. Dave, would you consider quiche to be an omelet pie?
I was going to actually address this properly in a question, but I might as well do it here. So we had a big debate in the games industry. Well, it wasn't a debate, but we established that it's a bit out of order that shepherd's pie and cottage pie is called pie because it's just meat and mash. So along the same principles, we never really like the idea of just having a hot pot with a pastry crust either. It's got to be a fully enclosed pastry package to be a pie. So that's how that works. The UK games industry has spoken.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, UK games industry. Your input on food items is valued.
Yep. One of those guys was from Doncaster. Something else in Doncaster I've said is there's not a lot else you can do during your visit, but there is a new retro gaming amusement arcade opening in the city centre. It's called Arcade Warehouse. So it does look fairly large. They've got room enough for a few sit-down racing cabs scattered around the outside walls, a little pool table. So could be worth at least me taking the short half-an-hour trip over to check out, perhaps. I don't know if I can drag anyone else along with me to Doncaster.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe if Clarkson's in residence, that's where he was born. But I don't know. Don't they have a video game market there still every year?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, well, they used to do them at the Dome. Because I did one. The last one I went to was like the week before the UK lockdown.
Yeah.
So obviously, where you want to be at the start of a pandemic is
is Doncaster.
around about 400 nerds crammed in a small room, all shut, trying to look at the same SNES games. But
God forbid you should get a mild cold that causes a slight headache.
Yeah.
Let's go get untested stuff instead and see what it does to our DNA.
Run away. One here from Gareth Hamer. Need your McCracken hit? Check out The Brilliant Coup. And The Brilliant Coup is a new Zach McCracken-esque adventure game coming to Steam. Looks interesting, very similar graphical style to Zach McCracken. Quite old school with the controls and, clicking on the words at the bottom. There are more modern ways to do point and clicks, but this is truly done in the old school style. So, looks interesting, and I will keep my eye out for it. I do love a point and click.
Carl Klitsky sent one in. He says, if you really like makeup and or Oregon Trail items, here is a company selling a makeup palette based on Oregon Trail. So now you know about that. They also, by the looks of things, sell lipstick based on it. So there you go. If you want to get something for the female gamer in your life, perhaps that. I also found...
Be careful, it might not just be females. It could be all menstruating people.
There's summer dysentery lines to die for.
maybe glam rockers. Who knows? I also found a bunch ages ago, just a month or so, scented candles based around video game properties. I was like, it makes sense. Some of them, there's obvious ones that aren't springing to mind, where it's just going to smell like, cherries or whatever. But then, like Sonic the Hedgehog, like Green Hill Zone, I suppose it could smell of grass, but some of the character sort of
and
ones.
Hedgehog sweat.
Yeah. Hedgehog shit. Lovely.
So
got one here from Andrew Hane,
mm-hmm.
and he says, was it Scott who couldn't continue building his Eagle Moss kit? Was it one of those? Yes, it was. All right, now the headline here, oh geez, Freudian slip. The headline here is Eagle Moss kits now available from FanHome. Now, I was super stoked for this because I have a 50% complete Eagle Moss Ecto 1. 50% complete, right? I would love to finish it. So about this time last year, I got the notice, hey, we're going to be taking over these lines of kits. Hey, you can continue your kit build. Hey, register here, of which I dutifully did. And it was like, put in your shipping information, which kit you need to pick up with, and your credit card information. We'll ship them out to you, right? June. So June, July, nothing. I didn't even really look because I figured, they missed the target a little. I mean, it's a big thing to organize. And then like August, I take a look and people are getting their parts and it's shipping. I thought, okay, I'll get mine real soon. Another month goes by. I don't get a goddamn thing. So I check. I don't have an email, nothing, right? I send an email. I get no response. So finally, I call their number. Now, there's a long chain of companies and pseudo companies, and none of these companies, well, they exist. I can't say they don't exist, but say for example, it's just a name of an entity that's going to do something in another country. So in America, there is, I've never been there. I can't say that there is or isn't, but from all of my dealings, there is in fact not a single human being at the American Eagle Moss, which falls under an Italian publisher called De Agostini. There isn't one freaking person in that office. The calls all go, whether you call the tech support, the billing support, the shipping support, you get a lady in India who speaks a few words of broken English. So when you call up this person, you're like, hey, I got nothing. You get a word salad of gibberish. You do not hang up the solution to your problem. So I tried for about 3-4 months. And the thing is, you call, it doesn't matter what number you call, it's like that lady, Michael, that kept answering all of your calls in Vegas. No matter who you call, you get her, right? So I thought, let's try and deal with this. So I sent an email to every address of substance I could find in the D'Agostini company in Italy. And I said, hi, I'd like to let you know how your American division is going overseas. And I sent it in proper Italian. It, composed by an Italian. And they get the email, and I don't get a fucking reply. Nothing, right? So, they didn't care. If they read it, they were like, yeah, one guy didn't get a shit. Who cares? I saw I can't get those parts. I've received nothing. So I still have an Eagle Moss kit that is now serviced by Fan Home that I have got 0.0 parts for. So, not my experience.
Hi, honey. Do you want her to come over?
Give her to Chesterfield.
I would say I've not heard that for a while, but I heard it at the end of last month's show, so I'd be lying. One here again from Gareth Hamer. C64 Doom clone, The Grey. Looks interesting. It's on Indie Retro News. Grey, the first-person shooter, a preview for the C64 is worth a look, and I can tell you that it is indeed worth a look. What was there about there? I think it was... Yeah, oh, that was it. So Jeff, in last month's top 10, said, like, we'd credited something to Saberman, and he thinks there's more than one Saberman, because he doesn't remember, the thing that we attributed to him. He said, I don't remember doing that. Saberman is also in this article, and I'm guessing it's yet another Saberman, so... maybe that's where the confusion is, and maybe Saberman is, hanging around on Indie Retro News and making videos of stuff. So maybe that's where the extra Saberman comes from. But we know there's only
maybe it's
one.
a new Doctor Who line of villains, the Sabermen.
The Saber. Yeah, there's a great picture out there, and it's. A 70s picture. I think it might be 60s. I'm sure it's an old black and white one, and it's like in between takes on a Doctor Who set, and there's just a couple of Cybermen stood there smoking.
Yeah, I saw that, and there was the I think I saw that exact same thing. And what was that same one? Did it also have the guys in the Dalek costumes, just like the midget just having a cigarette?
I can't remember. I'm gonna have to find that. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But yeah, it's a great picture.
I mean, I'd have thought our Saberman wouldn't be seen dead doing any C64 coverage.
No. He's a
No,
Spectrum
but he seems
boy
like
all
the guy
over.
that would be caught smoking a cigarette out behind the facility.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about money and the games industry and all that kind of stuff. Apparently, a huge 72% of 2023 game revenues came from mobile, which to me just seems way higher than it should be. I don't know if it's a real figure. Does it sound right, Random?
Feasible. Yeah, I mean, the whole, Microsoft's Activision Blizzard 69 billion takeover was mainly because everyone was like, oh yeah, they want Call of Duty, blah blah blah, but it wasn't. It's because they wanted King. They wanted just fucking Candy Crush money coming in. That was the main driver of it. So yeah, it's just the way everyone playing Fortnite, shit like that on phones, which I don't get because.
But it's free, isn't it? Fortnite.
Yeah, but it's all about the V-Bucks and
I suppose
all the shit. Although, well, it's because I say it's on phones. It obviously they had the spat with Apple, and it's not been on Apple for a while, etc. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff people are paying just vast amounts of money on battle passes and DLC on their mobile games. And mobile games have gone to shit. I remember the heyday of the iPad and iPhone, early iPad. And you used to have lots of forum threads about, oh yeah, this cool game's coming out, this cool game's, check it out. And now it's like no one just pays any attention. Netflix are trying to give away mobile games with subscriptions, but I don't think anyone's really that interested.
I saw a headline today, and it was a mobile developer, and they said their quote was, "The Apple Arcade has the smell of death about it."
Brilliant.
All right, what's this? Gareth Hamer again. Expensive but gorgeous Space Invaders watches for sale. So these are... The text is very small and I can't...
Number one gaming mascot.
The number, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was another one as well. So it's a company called Nubio by the looks of it, and they are making... so the tab says Quasar. I don't know if that's... Yeah, Quasar Automatic Space Invaders Limited Edition. So is Quasar a brand, or is it... I don't know. Is it just the line of watches? But anyway, they've made some very garish Space Invaders watches that I don't think I'll be seeing Dad wearing. But yeah, if you're into watches, and I'm not, I like the idea of nice watches, but I've not worn a watch for about 10 or 15 years. Yeah. Oh, they're all sold out. Well, some of them are sold out. So this one, the second one, the Straggler Blue is £473. The Voyager Gold
No,
is...
that's save £473.
Oh, what? Oh, Jesus, yeah. Scroll down a bit, Michael. Wow. Yeah.
That's the discount.
Wow. So originally, the Dark Matter that is sold out was £1,400, which in posh watch terms is not a lot.
Not that much, I suppose.
But in Space Invaders watch terms, it's a huge amount.
Yeah, you'd buy one for like a tenner.
Yeah.
Or it comes with a few cereal box tops.
Wow.
Just silly. Plain old-fashioned silly.
That is what Scott might term gratuitous.
I wouldn't buy one.
No.
Another one from Gareth Hamer, which I forgot to send in myself when I heard about it. And that was someone making a driver for getting around SafeDisk DRM for CD drives, because the official, you couldn't even play your official games on Windows anymore because it had just broken with new games of Windows. So obviously, I'm sure there would have been many CD cracks anyway out there, perhaps, for some of these games. But someone has made a sort of a go-between library that will allow it to work properly and help keep your physical original PC games alive and kicking on modern operating systems, which is all good.
Gareth Hamer strikes again. Doom may be innocent, but I disagree. Doom killed the Amiga, he says. But this article says how Doom didn't kill the Amiga. It's a long article. You can read at your leisure. I've saved it to read later. But I did click on it when it came in, and I spent a good few minutes just staring at the screenshot from Defender of the Crown. It's just, you remember just screens like that on the Amiga, and loading screens and title screens on the Amiga. It just, at the time, just fucking blew me away. They were fantastic, and this one is no different.
Well, they were, and that was the thing about the Commodore and the Amiga, why the demo scenes were what they were. And just showing what was possible, and even if it was a loading screen, or just an intro, like the one that always just made a lasting impression on me is of course Blood Money. Just these amazing intros that really sold the hardware to you, really, told you it was different than the other stuff, but it never bothered me if the games weren't quite what the intro was. Yeah, always a special feeling seeing what the Amiga was doing next. But I don't think Doom killed the Amiga. I mean, Doom was it launched a whole new product line of games. But I think it was Amiga's own inability to introduce hardware like, I don't know, a freaking CD-ROM drive and a hard drive that could hold anything, into the market. So
Gareth Hamer has sent an awful lot in this month.
Yes.
Which is good. I can't remember if I made a record clip out of this or was going to send it in, but this was a recent Games Done Quick speedrunning event that someone did the world's first dog speedrun, where he'd made a custom controller for Gyromite that replaced Rob with some big dog-friendly buttons, and basically trained the dog to obey his commands and press the right buttons at the right time to allow you to progress in the Game B mode that usually you would have Rob, the robot, pressing the buttons as you enter the commands for him. So that was a little bit of fun to do. Wasn't the heights of dog training that you'd see on Britain's Got Talent, but something a bit interesting and different for the speedrunning community.
So again,
got one here from I'm gonna say it's him again. Oh, look at this, Gareth Hamer. Thank you, Gareth, though, for real. Would be a long top 10, but what would your best years of gaming be? 1982 was the biggest year in gaming. If anybody knows what I'm referencing. I've often thought of that, and I would say it was 82, 86, because although the whole world gets credit for Nintendo appearing in 85, nobody saw that until 86. So I would say 82, well, all right, 71, the first arcade and the first home console. So 71, 82, 86, and maybe like 99. But those would be my biggie years.
1982 represented the most amazing year of gaming ever.
Now listen, 1983 must be the greatest year of gaming of all time.
I would say we did do this in our top 100. I wonder if it's got the stats there, or if I've saved it somewhere. Anyway, we did work it out, and I think it was 82. Actually, it's on our website. It's on the show's website. If you find where we did our top 100, you can go in and there's graphs there. It was 2013. I can't remember which show. Top 100 games ever. Blah, blah, blah. Round up 56. Let me just take a quick look at that. But I would say, those early arcade years, definitely. But 83 was the Christmas I got my C64, so there's only a week left in 83. So 84, games exploded for me with the C64. Obviously, we'd played Ataris and things like that before, but 84 would be a massive game just for the sheer volume of games that I would play, and at home as well. And still, you could go into town and find an arcade machine or whatever. So yeah, those early 80s years for me. Let me find
1985 was the
1984. What roundup did I say? 56. Bear with. Top 100 games ever. On these show notes, should be. Here we go. So, in our top 100 games ever list, that broke down to 1982 being the most popular year, followed by 1981. So there you go. 82. It's a fact. An absolute fact.
Well, it would be like discussing the golden era of Hollywood and saying, well, which movies was best, 38 or 39? It's all great movies every year, you know. That, you know, there will be many old games, but not all old games will be classic games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
82 would have been when I was conceived as well, so, you know, there's that.
Wow. I forgot you were so young.
Got another one, and it says Scott meets Sammy. So, over in Germany, this guy runs a collecting store, and it's just a massive store. I mean, it's like one of the stores you go into where it's not just 12 things on a shelf. It's like 12,000 things, and you can't even see the shelf. So, he talks about how, you know, in the face of the industry looking to push all digital, he, you know, believes in owning the thing, you know, and he talks about, yeah, just the simple experience of owning it, right? But as I was looking at that photo, as I was, you know, reading through the article, it kind of answered, it stood out to me as he was giving an interesting answer to the question, right? Like, why do you prefer physical? You know, why is that important to you? And I thought about it, right? I'm not a sports ball fan at all, but those of you who go to a football, be it American or European stadium, and you gather together with all your mates and you're stomping the ground and the whole place is shaking and there's cheering and beer flowing and you're having this great communal time, right?
Go sports.
Sports ball. But that's one thing, right? Or you could be sat playing FIFA soccer, right? You know, there's also what am I trying to think of the guy? Anyway, just that I had another example in my mind, but that whole thing of like, you know, look at that guy, that collection, that store that he has his collection in, and you know, or even I think of my own collection of, say, these physical arcade games, you know, that you know, yeah, I could emulate all that on a Pi. It's all virtual. Oh, why even have the Pi? I could just, you know, pay Sony a certain amount of money to have it in their store where I get a retro games package, right? But it's all fleeting. It's all circumstantial. It's all intangible. It's all, you know, it's difficult to share, right? But there's a permanency. There's a presence. There's a feeling about, I would much rather live in an arcade, I guess, as I do, than to have an app on a smart TV that connects to a Bluetooth controller that lets me play. It's not the same thing, man. And it never will be. So I just reflexively am against going down that road to make those real things less of a thing and make the synthetic thing more of a thing.
Mm-hmm. So again, Gareth Hamer strikes again. Minecraft comes to Dreamcast. Sort of. So Minecraft has a... This has scrolled up now. Stop it. Minecraft has a fan-made sandbox game, which is based on the Minecraft creative mode called ClassyCube, and ClassyCube has been ported to Dreamcast. So it's sort of Minecraft's creative mode, but it is on the Dreamcast. There is a link to the shizzle and a YouTube video that you can watch at your leisure. Yet again, Gareth Hamer spamming us. F-Zero will be getting some lost content back soon, and this is apparently some of the old Satellaview content that has been recreated by fans. So how the hell have they got hold of it? Is it, you know, have they downloaded it from somewhere? Because wasn't it online? The Satellaview was the online stuff, wasn't it? Have they downloaded it and, you know, I don't know, ported it? What the hell's going on?
A lot of the Satellaview stuff, yeah, has been sort of gradually pieced together over the years.
So where does it sit though? Where have people got it from?
I think it's just I haven't looked into it, but I think partly or probably watching this will probably tell you. But I think it's just finding, because it's saved to a little cartridge store, writable cartridge. And I think it's just
I suppose that
being able to sort
it
of
doesn't
piece the bits
stream it,
together.
does it? You save it.
No,
on,
they did
on-
stream. Did they stream music or commentary or like sort of they did that kind of thing for, like, there was the Zelda, wasn't there? But people have managed to recreate that as well. The streamed parts of that, which were all sort of on a time schedule, broadcast over the satellite. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
another one
amazing
here
when
from
people-
Gareth.
Just before we move on, it's amazing that people actually do that kind of stuff. And there's a great quote in the montage I put at the end of the last show, and it's SoCal. He says, people are amazing when you think about it. A lot of dicks in the world too, though.
How prophetic.
Yeah.
So one here from Gareth Hamer, and he says, "Hey Michael, hey Random, remember those nice things I said about Atari earlier?
Yes, I remember
I got it
that.
back up a bit. All right. So from the people who brought you G Fuel, Atari want to make a TV show now. So Atari has enlisted executive producers to create a show centered on the famed gaming brand, the Great Atari Celebrity Showdown. So here's the thing. The pair comes to the project after executive producing series such as the Chelsea Handler Show. Now, I'm going to look up Chelsea Handler because I'm not terribly familiar.
Safe
Let's
search on.
see what Miss Handler's up to, okay?
I'd be more impressed if
All right,
it was
see-
the Chelsea Manning show.
Fucking brilliant. So, the Chelsea Handler, okay, so she's basically your
She's
late
breasted.
40s, pointy-nosed, boring. All right, so let's see. She hosted a talk show. She's one of the most 100 influential people, according to Oxygen Network. I don't know what that is. Let's see here. Production work. It talks about all this work she does, but I don't know what any of it
No
is.
one's ever heard of it.
She's one of the most 100 influential people. Like, okay, I'm gonna pick a paragraph at random. I just highlighted it. Okay, it says, in August 2018, Handler revealed she had begun working on a documentary for Netflix examining the concept of white privilege. Okay, all right, hold on. Let's see. Here's another one. Oh, she starred in a half-hour late comedy series. Oh, a half-hour Hey, white people. Oh, yuck, 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 yuck. The worse the guests are, the more pathetic they are, the funnier the show is. I don't know who this bitch is. Go away. Stop it. No. So I don't think I will be watching a self-hating, pointy-nosed, unfunny Oxygen Network member talking about Atari. No. Stop.
All of what you just said goes to tell me I don't need to see this Atari TV show. Jeez, I think I'd rather drink
No.
the Kool-Aid.
I'm sure it'll be in the. They'll be showing it on 24/7 in the lobbies of their hotels
Probably, yeah.
or hotel now. As it's going to be again.
I'm just going to order a case of G Fuel. Okay, one
Yeah,
from
sponsorship.
Gareth Hamer again, sticking with Atari. The games list for the Atari 400 Mini that nobody in the world saw coming has been released.
And it took a long time for me to not just think that it was a joke. Like when I saw the news, I thought it was So I might have seen
I
a
mean,
tweet or something, and I just thought it was someone actually having a laugh. I was like, no, that's just it's just satirical.
Is it
It's
April
what
so
someone's
soon?
just written. Yeah.
I honestly had the same thought that it had to be satirical because, I mean, look, I happen to like that computer, right? And I think because I had at the 400, if I'm not mistaken, guys, I haven't looked inside the ones on the stack there in years, but as I recall, the 800 had the cards that racked in there vertically. But Atari wanted to be a serious computer company. They held back on introducing gaming consoles to focus on the computers. So this is a big part of Atari history. I liked that. I also I liked the ST, that basically Atari's Amiga-like computer. Very powerful, very capable, very underappreciated and respected in the hobby. So, I'm not at all against it, but this isn't that.
No, so briefly the list of games: Airball Asteroids, Basketball, Battlezone, Berserk, Boulder Dash, Bristles, Capture the Flag, Centipede, Crystal Castles, Electroglide, Encounter, Flip and Flop, Henry's House, Hover, Bother, Lee, Mule, Millipede, Miner 2049, and Missile Commando, Riley's Mine, The Seven Cities of Gold, Star Raiders 2, Wavy Navy, and Yoomp. There you go. I can't see it being the biggest. I mean, it's cool and all. I don't want to diss it, but I can't see it being the biggest selling mini system we've seen to date.
No,
I don't see. I like the system. I'm not going to buy one because I just don't have enough interest in it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I am over here like frickin' Fry with a wad of hundreds in the air going, take my money for that full-size Amiga.
Yeah.
Gareth Hamer has sent one in. Just shock. This
I don't believe
is
Shocking.
Shocking
Scuzzy
scenes.
drives
Shocking
into
scene.
the SSD era, which is looks like an enterprise solution where they've someone's made a compact flash or M2 SSD solutions for communicating with old SCSI storage hardware that's in a legacy system. So obviously you can replace your old spinning drives that are failing, not being produced anymore, with something a little bit more modern. But obviously, in much the same way that I think, all the sort of the original floppy to SD adapters and things came from industrial knitting machines and CAD, like CAD machinery that ran off floppy disk programs. It'll be from that comes something that could be quite interesting for retro use.
No, totally agreed. And I was actually this is the next one I had pulled up. This is a biggie. Now, this is not by any means the first or only SCSI solution out there. I have a SCSI adapter that is in my Macintosh and one in the Amiga. So there have been a ton of ways to bridge SCSI to solid state. But I'm definitely going to pick one of these up because what this looks like is a smaller, simpler, cheaper, faster, better in every way to do this. So don't have my hands on one yet. I will get one at some point. I will cover it in Hardware Flashback. But it looks like a good piece of hardware. So there's a number of systems out there that could benefit from this. Principally, the Mac series, of course. Good to see.
Something else that's good to see is one from Doug. There's an industry of not safe for work video game art for sale on eBay. There's a cottage industry of horny video game box art replacements on eBay, and researching this fact led me down a far, far stranger rabbit hole than I ever expected. That isn't Doug's words. That is the words of whoever wrote this on Games Radar and got the great job of covering the story. So you can check that out at your leisure. As I said, some of them may be NSFW.
I was a little bit disappointed. I thought it was going to be another take on the eBay pictures where you've got like the product and then the mirror behind showing, the naked ass of the man, standing. Oh, I thought it was going to be
selling
that.
the shiny kettle.
Yeah, people are putting essentially readers' wives' pictures up on eBay as product shots. That'd be much more fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I got one here from David Gyrich. Another digital game delisted. So Spec Ops: The Last Line disappeared. It won't be the last it won't be the last beloved game to disappear. So yeah, I mean, look, and he says here these stories just keep getting more common. Well, yeah, I mean, anytime government gathers data on you, promising not to abuse it, they abuse it. Every time they say, oh, we could revoke all this content, but we won't do that, they do. So archive and keep or don't, and it'll be there until it isn't. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, there's another one. Similar premise, but slightly different cause from Charlie. And it's anime. Two anime companies have merged, and they are, I guess, combining resources, building one website, and they're not porting over everything from both companies. They're using this as an excuse not to port everything over. So again, content you may own on one of these companies, once they've merged, you will no longer own on the new one.
Yeah, pass.
Yeah.
I was going to archive.
Yeah.
So got one here from Charlie. And it says boot Unix on an NES. So I saw this on YouTube, and it's a novelty. I mean, look, it's great. Anytime you can put, pardon me. Anytime you can do some neat software products, like there was a guy who, and they mentioned it in this article, because the 6502 CPU is common to both of them. There were low spec systems that were called current spec systems, back in the day. And the NES is a low spec computer. It's not all that dissimilar. I mean, if you look at the Commodore 64 games and you look at NES games, they're not all that far apart, right? Comparable hardware, comparable performance. Now, obviously, the consoles are going to suffer from less RAM just because of the inherent differences between computers and consoles. But that said, it is cool to see, Unix, Linux up and running on one of these. It's just a gateway for all sorts of neat new things that could possibly be done on the hardware. And also, believe it or not, it does lead to a deeper understanding of the hardware when you port over another OS. So I think this is all good stuff, and I'm glad to see it.
So another one here, and I've just remembered something that I used to do in live news. I used to paste the links into the chat as we were going along, so people could click on them as we went. And I've completely forgotten that I used to do that. So I'm going to do it with this one. Here you go. Let me know what you think about that. And this one is Tommy Tallarico has put his house up for sale. I think we kind of saw it coming, and here it is. I'm not in the market to buy it, but I did click on the pictures and look at his house. And it's up for just under $3 million. And there is a monthly HOA fee, which is $662. Now, is that a lot, even though it's a $3 million house, Scott? I mean, what sort of fees are they normally?
So, yeah, I can get up there and get stupid quickly. I think I'm paying like $240 a month, and for $240 a month, I basically get trash service, and that's about it, right? So, we could do. Remember the whole Neil James tax thing?
Yeah,
I could do a whole show, and it wouldn't be interesting or engaging like his work. I could do a whole long thing on just HOAs and their history in America. It went from a simple thing of like, hey, let's make sure we don't end up with, jacked up, fucked up stuff in our neighborhood, and let's have some standards, right? And it became, like anything, a money-making venture for a few people that insert themselves into the process, right? So, like many things, the ostensible purpose is long since gone, and now it's about money. So, like, for example, let's say in my neighborhood, you're not supposed to have any commercial vehicles brought to your home, right? So, okay, let's say somebody does that. I can call the HOA, I can email the HOA, I can do anything, and nothing's going to happen. That vehicle is going to sit there, okay? But if I call them and say, hey, the fucking lights by the pool aren't on, and, you need to get out there and service those, it'll be 3 months before they do. And it won't be because I called.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it, let me mail in half a payment. They have an entire fucking industry to immediately catch up with me about that missing $120. I actually did that on purpose because they literally cut our trash service in half, the frequency of it, right? So a whole bunch of us just wrote half service, half payment, right? And sent it in. Oh boy, did fucking, letters and calls, and the next day, boy, they could respond to that shit, And so I'm just, our whole project now is, we are transitioning out to a farm, and no fucking HOAs anywhere near this farm. So I'm also looking at, the kind of space where if I want to go out naked and or with a gun and fire it off the back porch, it's all good. So so that figure, yes, it's stupid, it's high. What does he get for that? He probably gets somebody that goes around and measures grass height. So for real, they will measure the fucking height of the grass in his lawn and send him a letter saying, hey, you need to peel off some of that fucking Amico money and go mow your lawn. But what they won't do is a homeless person will pull in and park a fucking RV right in front of his fucking driveway, and he'll call the HOA and say, hey, look, there's a fucking homeless minivan in front of my fucking driveway, and they pour a 5-gallon bucket of shit out the door every morning. And you know what? HOA ain't got nothing to do with that. So,
I know a man in Manchester who would like to drive an RV to somewhere in America. I might have a plan for you.
And drop a deuce in the corner.
Yeah.
Stay out of my neighborhood, James.
Yeah. Shit is full. Okay. David Gyrick again. Trying to catch up with Gareth Hamer, but I think it's a thankless task this month. Every FDS game reviewed. It is a video on YouTube. And what's the channel? Is it one we've seen before? R&D Stranger. I think it is one we've seen before, actually, because he's done lots of other systems. And it is what it says on the tin. David says, I've mentioned him before, but I think an update is warranted. He's completed every single Famicom game for his channel, and he also did the entire Epoch console libraries too. Now he is working on all the Famicom disk system games. So, if you want to learn about early Japanese console history, this channel keeps getting better and better.
Very nice. And yet more from David Gyrick, and this was the news that came out that, so in December we heard Sega, I think it was at the Game Awards, Sega announced the intention to make a new Crazy Taxi and a Golden Axe and a Shinobi, and the news came out through an interview or something recently that their plan for Crazy Taxi is for a AAA live service game, which sounds like possibly the worst way to handle making a new Crazy Taxi game.
Dave, let me interject. I need a little bit of context assistance from you as you discuss this. There is a new phrase which I did not hear before, I don't know, 30 days ago, called live service games, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you, and what does it relate to this context?
So that's the essentially a game that's got some sort of ongoing life to it. So the content's not all there at day one. there is, they might have made the content already, or at least a bulk of it, but there will be what they call a roadmap for how they're going to drip feed this content out to keep an audience engaged in a game over, for a longer period of time, rather than just playing over 20 hours and getting their money's worth and their enjoyment and moving on. And in service of that, they will then sell you, you'll be able to probably go through a free rewards ladder the more you play it, every check-in every week. But there'll also be a paid version of that, which is referred to as a battle pass. And that will give you sort of more rewards for getting, the levels that you've got up. The rewards for the amount you've played it over a given month or 4 month, a quarter. And then they reset all of your progress and start again. And it's basically just, here's a game with microtransactions and subscriptions that we will drip feed content to and try and get an audience engaged for the long run, get them on the hook. So they sort of, it becomes part of their life routine is checking in and playing this game every now and again. And as part of that, they feel justified in then spending money on it constantly. So yeah, how you do that with Crazy Taxi, I have no idea.
But how does this differ from, say, all right, now World of Warcraft, right? 2004, World of Warcraft launched, right? I love the idea of it. I am not against subscription games when something is delivered. I loved it. How would you say this is a different concept from, say, what they did with the World of Warcraft model?
Yeah, so World of Warcraft and that era MMO model, you bought a base game and then you had a subscription which was for maintenance fees of and normal MMOs still are quite a lot like this. They're still bringing them out, and you essentially pay a monthly fee for access to the server infrastructure, and then it does pay for a bit of ongoing development, but then there will be sort of big content pack expansions every 6 months or every 12 months, and that you then have to buy the expansion pack, but you'll get a big chunk of content, and that is then the next bit of content for the next 6 months or 12 months, whereas this is based around all the decisions here. That was all designed by people who were like, right, we want to make a fun bit of story, and then we want to make this new bit of story to sell you, and then another bit of story to sell you, and maybe we'll change some mechanics around, introduce flying mounts so you can get around the world easier, things to improve the game and things like that. Whereas the live service stuff now is all driven by essentially people who went to finance school and psychology schools. They got together, don't really necessarily know anything about game designers, but pulled a few game designers into a room and went, right, we've seen from years and years and years of people, gambling addicts and things, that if you do these things and drip feed rewards out in this way and give people dopamine hits in this sort of structured time, they will willingly just keep shoveling money without thinking about it psychologically. And it's all geared around making that revenue stream come in rather than giving you engaging content. There won't.
Wow, that sounds like a great advance towards gamers' engagement and quality.
I'm sold.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what it's all come down to essentially these days. And so as you can imagine, you could make a Crazy Taxi. Go back to the battle royale phase that we were going through, and if you had 100 taxi drivers all competing in a city for the same fares, and the area of the city you can go to pick the fares up from, and thus the number of customers get smaller and smaller every 5 minutes, and you've got to race to pick them all up and make make enough money to stay alive. That could work, but I just don't know how you make that with a AAA budget and also sort of roll it into some long. I mean, I guess it does fit into a live service model in terms of the way that battle royales do. With you get they'll drip feed you car skins and new Hawaiian shirts and things like that that you can then sort of pay for.
This just sounds thrilling.
Yeah, it's not.
I can purchase a new Hawaiian shirt. I couldn't do that in the old games that focused on content.
So something else that sounds thrilling.
I had to start the same shirt. I had to start the same game sometimes with a shirt that I finished the game with. It was sad.
Oh my God, you're missing out on so much. I nearly said content, but it isn't. Something else that sounds riveting. Mike Garcia in chat says, so we were talking about HOAs and stuff, and like, Scott said, it's not going to take up an episode to briefly describe what I'm going to talk about. But he said, So someone asked basically what's an HOA, so I explained. Basically, it's the equivalent of our council tax, and then he said, isn't council tax paid via land tax? No, the difference. So basically, council tax is a rough equivalent of HOA. So we pay our council tax, we get street lights, we get bins taken away, we get, if there's communal areas of grass, the council will come and cut it, etc., etc. Not potholes, though. Potholes are paid by road tax, allegedly. And then, so in the 80s, one of the things Margaret Thatcher wasn't popular for, so council tax used to be called rates, and you paid them per household. Margaret Thatcher changed that to everyone over 18 in the house has to pay. And so there were riots, people went to prison because they wouldn't pay, etc., etc. So that's what council tax is. Land tax, I'm guessing he means ground rent. So if you buy a property over here, it could be freehold or it could be leasehold. If it's freehold, you own the land that it's built on. If it's leasehold, somebody else owns the land that your house is built on, but you get like a 99-year lease on that land or something, so they're not going to evict you, basically. But your ground rent, your ground rent would be a nominal fee. Normally, I mean, in my last house, it was like £3 a year, something like that. Now, these ground rent companies own swathes of land, so it adds up for them. But they will offer to sell you the leasehold, and I got a quote for mine. It was £700 odd. So basically, I'd have to live there 200 odd years to see a benefit. But they say, oh, it'll put value on your house when you sell it if you own it. And nah, it's not going to put on £700 worth of value. Whoever buys it can pay £3 a year. So that's the difference in that.
So to a little bit of context for this fellow without going too far down the rabbit hole. We have, and this is, like I said, we could do a whole thing on just taxes here. So part of the problem is we have federal income taxes, right? State income taxes. So they tax your money when you get it, right? Then for say, maintenance of communal things like police stations, fire stations, schools, what have you, and road maintenance, you pay like property tax, right? So, for example, I get a bill for the assessed value of my house, a tax on that, for the assessed value of my vehicles. Now, I can only drive one vehicle at a time and only do, damage to the roadway with one vehicle. I get taxed for every vehicle I fucking own, right? Now, every year. And it's basically like reoccurrent sales tax is what it is. So then they say, well, that's vital because all that money goes to maintain the roads. Then every time I pull up to get a tank of gas, half of the fucking cost is taxes. And they say, well, that's your civic obligation. That's to pay for the roads. Okay, so I do that. Then I pull up to the fucking road and they're like, yeah, pay the toll here to use the road, a la carte. So I'm like, wait, I paid for this motherfucker 3 times. Why is it only 2 lanes wide and it's full of potholes? What happened to all the money? So over and above that glorious fucking arrangement of government taxation, they've added in the HOA, which is not at all a government entity. It's an entirely private thing. Like I said, the original intent was, let's say me and James and Random lived on the same road. And so did Andrew Hane. So we all know how Nay keeps his house. He's got a motor block hanging from the tree out front, and you know, he sits outside on his four-wheeler with no shirt on, smoking a cigarette, right? So you and I are getting tired of looking at that, right? So what do? We say, all right, we're going to form an HOA. So anybody that buys a house in this neighborhood, part of the condition of buying a house, you must join the HOA. And now your dues are $200 a month. And for that, we provide a trash service, which you could privately get for $50 a month. We're going to sell it to you for $200 a month. And then whenever you, Andrew, leave your four-wheeler sitting out in the driveway, we say that's not something we want to look at in this neighborhood. So they fine you, right? If you don't pay the fine, you sign an agreement saying that they can legally put a lien against your house. So basically, if your house sells, a portion of that money goes to pay what you owe the HOA and fines that you didn't pay. So it's an entirely private venture, not at all a government thing.
Right.
So, yeah, it's it started off as a way to keep neighborhoods nice and ended up with a way for the middleman to pocket some unearned income.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's a way of separating you and your money.
Kinda.
I'll let Random do the one he sent in. That one, sent by me, I'm going to save until Sparkle's here because I've got a bone to pick with him. That one is
all right,
Random. Go on, Random,
So
if you
I'll
got
go
one
and do
ready.
yes, this was someone has put out some early pictures of a Dreamcast Slim mod that they're working on, and they've turned it into, I guess it kind of looks, if a Dreamcast had sex with a Mac Mini, kind of thing, if you can imagine that.
I'd watch.
I'm just trying to imagine it now. Yeah. It's working.
And
Get in there.
yeah, they say they've still got a bit of work to do, but it's looking pretty nice little rework of the Dreamcast console, which is a very nice console anyway. Another one I've got is the PlayStation Portal, the new PSP. Some Google engineers have managed to exploit it and run the original PSP emulator on it as a proof of concept to show that they can actually run more than just streamed content on the device. But they say they're not releasing the details yet. There's still a lot of work they want to do on it, and they don't know whether they will because it's a software-only bypass. So whether it will still be valid, who knows? But then, I guess now that people know it's possible, people will go out looking for where the exploit is and maybe get to hacking that device, which I don't know. Seems like it might be an okay device, but
Do you watch Bob Wolf on YouTube? Watch his video on it. I don't think you'll feel the same way after that.
and it, as just what it's sold as, it doesn't seem worth it, certainly. Yeah. And then the engineers said that it only had a 6 gig of storage on it, and it's not got any expansion or anything, so it's not going to be that useful compared to just buying an actual dedicated retro gaming handheld that you can these days.
Yeah. So one here from Charlie. The untold story of the most insane game controller ever made. This one came in yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to read through it all yet. I know what it is, obviously. I've got one over there. It is an article, fairly lengthy article, with pictures and video about the Steel Battalion controller. So, looks a good article. I have saved it to read later. Have you read it, Scott?
Yeah, it's cool. I'm a Steel Battalion fan. I 13 years ago was introduced to that game, and love it. In fact, I think it's almost time to break out the old Steel Battalion controllers again and do a little Steel Battalion gaming. For those of you not familiar, it's basically a enormous controller set that has foot pedals and cockpit controls that came in a box and cost about as much as the console itself. For the original Xbox, the first one, and it is just, to this day, the graphics aren't dated. It's a simulator just for something that doesn't exist yet. So wonderful, wonderful game.
And on our very YouTube channel, there is some videos of me playing through a fair chunk of it. That's the only downside to the new house setup at the moment. I haven't figured out the Steel Battalion configuration yet. So yeah, that's something I'll have to work on at some point.
Dude, you got to get a Steel Battalion controller set. I've got it.
He's got one.
Like I said, made the videos on our YouTube channel.
I thought you were I'm sorry. I thought you were saying you're emulating it, but
oh no. But yeah, I just haven't thought of what I'm going to do in terms of tableage or anything to put it on while I'm here. But we had it permanently set up in a corner of the living room when we were at uni. We found a table and just permanently set the Steel Battalion up there. It was class.
One here from David Garrick. Hotel Mario beta found. So Hotel Mario was a game on the amazing Philips CDI console. And this is a beta version because the game came out, didn't it? It was released. So I'm guessing someone's found an early version. So they're just covering an early version that they've found. But yeah, the game was released and is available. Should you want to put yourself through that?
One other one from me was recent was, the actual original news wasn't so recent, but there's a house clearance company in the UK stumbled across two of the world's first ever desktop computers. Q1 Corporation with Intel 8008 CPUs in them. They just stumbled across them, and then at the time where I first heard the story, they weren't sure whether they were going to sell them to privately after they were going to be on display briefly at Kingston University. But it was a follow-up to the story, and they've actually released pictures of them, and I'm sure they've cleaned them up for the display at the university, but they look like they're in pretty good condition. Some very sexy looking pieces of kit there. So I'm sure there will be probably another follow up in a month or so about how much they ended up selling for. I can imagine it will go for quite a lot. Or AD might just buy them for a tenner for the museum.
Yeah, Mike, see if you can wrangle that donation for your project over there at the museum.
Yeah. One here from Gareth Hamer. It's two links, one to a YouTube video and one to a product. And I wish I'd had more time to read through the actual product. So this is basically watch movies on your Atari 2600. He says in his email, how low res do you like your movies? And it's a cartridge that you put in the 2600. And it plays video that kind of looks a bit like the noise out of Yars' Revenge. And I would think, is this a joke? But then there's a link to a product. Movie Cart Atari 2600. It's out of stock, but it's $24.99. And I'm thinking, well, how does this work? I'd like to know how it works, and I've not had a chance to read it. What is it? Blah, blah, blah. Do you put a video on so it has an SD card, minimum 4 gig, with a full-length colour public domain video ready to watch. So it has, you put a video on an SD card, I'm guessing in a particular format. Doesn't necessarily say that here. There is a documentation link. I won't bore you with the details and the process of me clicking on links and reading things. So you can check it out for yourself. As always, all the links that we talk about, although they're not in live chat like normal, I'll try and remember that next month, they will be in the show notes. And as I said at the top, you should go back and check out last month's show notes because I put links into a lot of the Well, maybe all of the things that were mentioned in the top 10. And just before we do the last news item, if you joined us late, as I know Neil Barmer did, and you think, well, I've heard the news now, there was some stuff right at the beginning of news that is pertinent to listeners and to the podcast in general, and you really should go back and check out what we talked about at the beginning of live news. So when the podcast comes out, don't think you've heard all the live news, because there is stuff in there that you should really know about. And the last one, predictably, came in, and no one claimed the second prize, by the way. There was a second prize alarm. No one claimed it. So maybe we could do one now and see if anyone's remembered. But the last news item from Gareth Hamer, predictably, he says, get that new car smell whilst using VR dogging simulator. It's not a dogging simulator. It kind of got me excited, but it is called GameScent. Now, again, I was looking, is it April the 1st? But this is a smell generator. They say AI, but I mean, they say everything's AI these days. It's not. But it's a smell generator that you use while you're playing games and, well, does what it says on the tin. It makes smells while you're playing video games. I guess it could add a level of realism.
Who doesn't?
Pardon?
I say, who doesn't?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Lord Neil Barmer doesn't know what to type. Random Dave told you earlier what to type, man. You asked earlier the phrase that pays, and Random Dave told you, and you ignored him. Oh, you've got the
And
time.
for that, a price is paid.
You've got the time it takes me to finish this sentence to win a prize, and if you don't, I'm not going to make the sentence any longer, stalling for time, while you go back and figure out what the phrase that pays was, and then either type it or copy and paste it into chat. And now I think your time really has run out. But if you really do want a mug, I suppose Random Dave would send you a James and Watch mug. There, he's figured it out. Well done. Sent us one news item and walks away with a mug, the cheeky git.
All right, so make sure you label that pity mug and send it out.
Yes, yes. Lord Neil, email Random Dave. Put the subject of your email pity mug, and he may send you one this calendar year. So we have got to go and take a toilet break and then come back and do a top 10. You won't be hearing that live. We are going to end the live news in a second. But thank you for those who joined us. Thanks for those who have been all through. Thanks for those who joined late. Thanks for those who started and then had to go away and do more important things. Basically, thanks to everyone listening live or via the podcast. And like I said, if you've heard it live but didn't catch the beginning, go back when the podcast comes out and check out the beginning. So thank you, everybody. And good night. We will speak to you at some point. Go on.
I was going to say, and if you and three other of your retro enthusiast friends would like to record your own top 10 and save us from having to do some work for a month again, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, yeah. That would have meant we could go to bed now. That would be nice. Anyway, say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Scott's not saying goodnight. I'll say goodnight.
Oh, I said goodnight, everybody, but it was, I guess it was lost in the noise.
It was lost in my noise. Okay, good night, everybody.